Hey, what's up guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here on behalf of Lucky Tackle Box, and today I want to go over 3 tips that I think is going to put you in a better mind state for catching fish. For me, I'm real fortunate. I live out here in Northern California, and on my show that I've been running for years called the Informative Fisherman, I've been able to fish with so many different pros and absorb different information from them and visually see and experience things that not a lot of other guys get the option to do. And I kind of want to give you 3 tips that I experienced from all these different pros that I fished with over many years that I noticed they all do, and that everybody else that I fish with or I see novice doing, something that these pros don't do. And they're kind of like mistakes, but not really. The number one thing I see starting off is tons and tons of different lures. All right, I'm telling you, I do it all the time too, and I probably do this because I fish with so many different professionals that I see them doing this on a regular basis. They'll try a jerkbait, a crankbait, a deep diving square bill, a frog, a drop shot, a shaky head, a wacky rig, and literally there's piles and piles of baits laying on their feet or up against the dashboard of the boat. And I've even fished with experts off the bank. I've had friends come over and or we went shore fishing in a pond, and the same thing. They have a quick box in their backpack. And I even did pond fishing specials with a couple of my professional buddies, and we're going to be doing more of that on my show, to where there's just so many baits that they're going through. And the reason for this is bass are very finicky and very intricate due to their environment or weather changes at the time. For example, if it's overcast that morning, there's a lot of fog in, a lot of cloud cover, there's a little bit of wind on the water, and then an hour and a half later it gets sunny, the wind lays down, the fish are going to change. And also, while all that's going on in that environment, there could be bluegills running up there, there could be shad, there could have been crawdads readily available in that low light. The bass's mentality is going to change, so do not go out with 1 or 2 lures and expect to catch fish all day long. Sure, there is certain days where that happens and the fish are going to constantly eat, but that's not always the case. Keep in mind that you're going to be making educated decisions. Sure, if it's matted cover, you're going to throw a frog, you're going to flip a weighted worm into there. If it's deeper, clear lake, you may want to throw a crankbait first or drag a jig along the bottom. If it's clear bluebird skies, you may want to finesse fish and drag a shaky head or a drop shot. Sure, those are all educated decisions, but there is a million baits in bass fishing, and I often get the question, do we really need so many baits? And the reality is, yes, you do. A prime example, you probably heard of a Ned rig, you probably heard of a shaky head, you probably heard of a ball head jig. There is times and place where a bass will only eat a shaky head, and they won't eat the Ned rig. And then you can go out that same place the next day, and they only want to eat a Ned rig and not the shaky head. And the difference is, it could have been gobies up there, and the next day it's shad. Or bluegills ran up there and were too aggressive, and they scared the gobies off, and now they switched to a drop shot that looks like a darn bluegill. This happens, so don't be afraid to explore everything in your tackle box. Just keep a cutter readily available, make it easy, have an empty box with you, whether it's in your backpack or on the deck of a boat, with a ton of different baits to try, because that is something every pro does every time I've been out with them. They don't always have it dialed within the first 5 minutes. The second thing I see all these pros do is we never pick one spot and stay there. Even when they're pounding fish, okay? I do this all the time too, and I do it, and it's probably because I absorbed it, like I said, from these guys, that I'll run to a spot and I'll catch a few good ones, and I'll run to another spot. And I'll get to that spot and I'll fish the second spot, I'll fish the third spot real quick, and then I'll come back to that first spot instead of sitting there beating on them, which I could do, and if I was fishing a tournament, that would be fun. Or if you're just out fun fishing, yeah, you can do that. And I see pros do this a lot, to where they're going to check main lake points, they're going to check deep walls, they're going to check shallow grassy flats, they're going to check timber, they're going to check the top of the water, they'll throw a top water in these areas, they're going to check the middle of the water column, they'll throw a little soft plastic swim bait, they're going to drag something along the bottom, and they're looking for key differences and key clues in each one of these areas. And for example, here's another thing, they'll check watercolor and water temperature. This is very overlooked, and if you're bank fishing, Watercolor and water temperature really is not going to work for you. You need a boat to run to different areas. But if you're in a pond and you don't try a top water, you don't try a jerk bait in the middle of the water column, you don't try dragging something along the bottom, or fishing the deepest part and then fishing the shallowest part, you are literally cutting yourself short. You need to try all these things because, like I said, situational awareness, what's going on subsurface, you don't always know, and you are going to cut them off by bouncing here, bouncing there, trying here, trying here, trying here, literally trying everything. And here's one big ticket. I am guilty of this mistake. I guarantee you watching are guilty of this mistake, and if you're not, you can say it in the comments, but we all know you're lying. So there, eat that one. Just kidding. Reel speed. We all cast out, whether we're throwing a rattle trap, a chatterbait, a swim bait, we get in our head this magical speed to where we retrieve 90% of the time throughout that day. We'll try it in the beginning, we'll go a little bit faster or go a little bit slower, but it is hard for your brain to tell you to do that frequently. So tell yourself beforehand that you are going to try to change your speed often. Higher in the water column, lower in the water column. Let it cast out. Let a reaction bait fall all the way to the bottom. Let your swim bait hit the bottom. You know, cast out another time, retrieve it across the top, and always play with your reel speed. That is absolutely critical. There is no ideal speed for any sort of lure you're casting out and retrieving. Listen to me. There is absolutely no ideal speed. And I guarantee you, think about this. There's been a time where your friend hooked up and you went to get the net for him, or you went to help him out, or you're watching him catch it. You either stopped reeling and all of a sudden, boom, you got bit, or you're reeling really fast to go help him and you got bit. But that was the only time that happened that day, and you didn't try reeling faster, or you didn't try letting it sit there and dead sticking it more often. These are all things pros do frequently that most people do not do, so focus on those. Last but not least, number 3, you're gonna hear this, and I want you to think of it differently. And you've probably heard this, and you probably heard pros say this, you probably heard me say it for many years, is stay confident in what you're doing. And yes, easier said than done. You lose one big fish, like me, I'll be throwing stuff off the boat, getting all upset if I lose a big one. And yeah, wheels are falling off, and I'm like, get it under control, Nick. It's all good. You'll catch another one. And pros stay confident. I have fished with hundreds of big name guys, and I've gone 5-6 hours straight where they caught one little dink, but they're still doing their routine. They don't seem frazzled whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, they figure it out. They got the clues from everything else I've been telling you. Wham, wham, wham. Then they put 5 monsters in the boat. And it's just like, man, you know what? I probably wouldn't have done that, but I've experienced it so many times. This is now something I've adopted into my game. And I'm going to tell you how to do this. Do not have other side distractions. A person that's upset, or a person who's thinking about something else. If you come out thinking about what you have to do when you get home, you are not in the right mindset. So do not create high expectations for yourself that day. If you have other things going on in your mind, bass fishing is a mental chess game. This is dead serious. If you are not thinking about only fishing, the guy who is, that has the exact same skill base as you, will beat you. And this is the honest to God truth. Confidence, knowing what you're going to do, knowing what you're trying to do is going to work sometime throughout that day, and you are going to dial them in, and making sure you are focused on your agenda the whole time. If you have a buddy that's in the boat, be like, hey man, let's talk about bass fishing. I'm trying to keep my head in the game. That is going to greatly help you. Remember guys, if you like this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the little bells to get notifications from us here at Lucky Tackle Box. We're not always plugging our lures. We are in this for the fishermen. I didn't even talk about a single lure for you guys this time out of the box, because Lucky Tackle Box, we care about our viewers, and we greatly appreciate it when you guys send us pictures, you tag us in your comments and your post on Instagram and Facebook, and I don't even know what the other one's called because I'm not on it. But once again, guys, appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.